She said only immediate family for the BBQ, but I gave them everything I had, including the house they were celebrating in. The words still echo in my mind, 3 months later, like a broken record that won't stop playing. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I'd share. If you also believe that we still have value, even after 60, type 1 in the comments. And please, leave a like and subscribe. Let's show them we're strong together. My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 78 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew what family meant. I was wrong. The morning light filters through the dusty curtains of my Chicago brownstone, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors that Evelyn and I refinished together 40 years ago. Her coffee mug still sits in the sink. I can't bring myself to wash it. The house feels too big now, too quiet, filled with the ghost of laughter that once bounced off these walls when Jennifer was little, when family dinners meant something more than obligation. I adjust my reading glasses and check my phone for the 3rd time this morning. No messages, no calls. The silence has become my constant companion since Evelyn passed 18 months ago. She was the glue that held us all together, the one who remembered birthdays, who insisted on Sunday dinners, who made sure I stayed connected to Jennifer and Mark and my precious granddaughter Lily. Without Evelyn, I'm just forgotten. The smell of her perfume still lingers in our bedroom. White shoulders, the same scent she wore on our wedding day. Sometimes I catch a whiff of it and turn around, expecting to see her smile, expecting her to tell me that Jennifer called, that Lily drew another picture for Grandpa, that everything is still the way it used to be, but the house stays empty, and the phone stays silent. I shuffle to the kitchen, my joints protesting with each step. Arthritis has been my unwelcome companion for the past 5 years. The refrigerator hums its lonely tune, filled with groceries for one, single-serving portions. Expired milk. Half-empty containers of food I buy but forget to eat. On the counter sits a stack of bank statements, evidence of my generosity, or my foolishness, depending on how you look at it. For the past 15 years, I've been sending Jennifer and Mark $3,000 every month. Not a loan, a gift. Money that came from my retirement savings, from the nest egg Evelyn and I built penny by penny during my 40 years as an accountant at Morrison & Associates. When Jennifer and Mark bought their house in Oak Park, that beautiful colonial with the wraparound porch and the 3-car garage, I didn't hesitate. They needed $80,000 for the down payment. I gave them $150,000. For Lily's future, I told them. For the family. I thought money could buy me a place in their lives. I thought generosity would translate to love, to inclusion, to mattering. I was so very wrong. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, hand-delivered by a neighborhood kid who couldn't have been more than 12. Inside, an invitation printed on expensive cardstock, the kind Jennifer always uses for her social events. Gold lettering, embossed edges, the works. Join us for our annual summer BBQ, Saturday, June 15th, 2:00 p.m. The Hoffman Residence, 124 Oak Grove Lane. Below that, in Jennifer's careful handwriting, Dad, this year it's just immediate family. Thanks for understanding. Jennifer, just immediate family. I read those words 7 times, each reading feeling like a small knife twisting in my chest. Immediate family. As if I, the man who raised her, who walked her down the aisle, who held Lily in the hospital the day she was born, somehow didn't qualify. I called Jennifer that evening, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. Hi, Dad. Her voice was rushed, distracted. I could hear Mark in the background, probably watching the Cubs game. Lily's laughter echoed from somewhere in their house. My house, the one I helped them buy. Jennifer, honey, I got your invitation. Oh, good. I wasn't sure if Tommy delivered it. He's Mrs. Peterson's grandson. Yes, he did. I was wondering, when you say immediate family? A pause, long enough for my heart to sink. Dad, it's just going to be us this year. Mark's parents, his brother's family. It's getting too big and we want to keep it small. But I'm your father. I know, Dad. And we love you. But Mark's family is flying in from Denver. And with the kids and everything, it's just easier this way. Easier. As if my presence was a complication. As if the man who gave them their house, who sends them money every month, who remembers every birthday and holiday, was somehow an inconvenience. I understand, I lied, because that's what fathers do. We make it easy for our children, even when they're making it hard for us. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. We'll call you next week, okay? The line went dead before I could respond. That Saturday, I couldn't help myself. I drove past their house, past my investment, past the place where my money lived even if I wasn't welcome. The street was lined with cars, expensive cars, BMWs and Mercedes and that ridiculous Tesla that Mark bought last year, the one I helped pay for. Through the fence, I could see the backyard I'd helped them landscape, the pergola I'd funded, the outdoor kitchen where Mark was grilling steaks. Premium cuts, no doubt, the kind I hadn't bought for myself in years. Children ran across the lawn, playing games on grass I'd helped plant. Adults mingled with wine glasses, laughing at jokes I couldn't hear. Lily, my beautiful granddaughter, was there in a new dress, yellow with tiny flowers, the kind Evelyn would have loved. They all looked so happy, so complete, so utterly unaware that the man who made their comfort possible was sitting in a 10-year-old Honda Civic across the street, watching through tears he didn't know he was crying. I counted 14 adults, 8 children, a full celebration of life and family and joy, and I wasn't part of it. Not because of distance, not because of illness or prior commitments, but because my own daughter had decided that the man who sacrificed his retirement dreams for her comfort wasn't immediate enough family to deserve a hamburger and a conversation. As I sat there, watching Mark flip burgers on the grill I'd helped buy, watching Jennifer laugh with friends in the yard I'd helped create, watching Lily play with cousins who got to be there when her grandfather didn't, something cracked inside my chest, not my heart. That would be too clean, too dramatic. This was messier, like the slow collapse of a foundation that had been eroding for years without anyone noticing. I drove home in silence, past the familiar streets of my neighborhood, past the park where I used to push Jennifer on swings, past the ice cream shop where 3 generations of our family had shared countless summer evenings. But when I pulled into my driveway, when I walked through the front door of the house that suddenly felt more like a mausoleum than a home, I realized something that both terrified and liberated me. I was done being grateful for scraps, done pretending that monthly money transfers equaled family love, done accepting that being forgotten was somehow normal, somehow what I deserved for having the audacity to age. That night, for the first time since Evelyn died, I didn't send Jennifer her monthly check. It was time to see what immediate family really meant when the money stopped flowing. Time to discover whether I was a father or just a bank account with a heartbeat. The silence in my house has weight now. It presses against my shoulders as I sit at my kitchen table, surrounded by 20 years of bank statements spread out like evidence in a trial I never knew I was part of. Each canceled check tells a story I'm only now beginning to understand. December 2004, $12,000 for Jennifer's wedding dress, the one she just had to have from that boutique downtown. "Daddy, please," she'd said, tears in her eyes. "It's my dream dress. I'll never ask for anything again." March 2007, $25,000 for Mark's business opportunity, some consulting firm that folded within 6 months. He'd promised to pay me back with interest. I'm still waiting. August 2010, $40,000 for Lily's private school tuition when Jennifer decided the public schools weren't good enough. "She's gifted, Dad. She needs the best start in life." September 2015, $85,000 when Mark got laid off and they faced foreclosure. I liquidated my entire pension early, paying the penalties, just to keep them in their house. The numbers blur together as I calculate. $273,000 over the years. Not counting the monthly payments that became as regular as my morning coffee. Nearly $300,000 of my and Evelyn's life savings, handed over with love and returned with, what exactly? I remember the day Jennifer graduated college. Summa cum laude, accounting major, following in her old man's footsteps. Evelyn and I sat in that auditorium, bursting with pride as our daughter walked across that stage. She hugged us afterward, said she couldn't have done it without us, promised she'd take care of us when we got old. "You'll never have to worry about anything, Daddy," she'd whispered in my ear. "I'll always be here for you." 28 years later, I can't even get an invitation to a backyard barbecue. The phone rings, startling me from my memories. Mark's name flashes on the caller ID. For a moment, hope flickers in my chest. Maybe Jennifer told him about the missed payment. Maybe they're calling to check on me, to see if something's wrong. Harold. Mark's voice is clipped, professional. No warmth, no concern. We didn't receive your deposit this month. Not, hi, Dad. Not, how are you feeling? Just straight to business. I know, I say quietly. Well? He's tapping something in the background. Probably his expensive Mont Blanc pen on his mahogany desk. The desk I helped him buy when he made partner at his law firm. Well, what? When can we expect it? Jennifer's already written the checks for Lily's summer camp and the mortgage payment. You know we budget around your contribution. My contribution. As if I'm some silent partner in their life. Some investor who owes them quarterly dividends. Mark, I was wondering, since I couldn't make it to the barbecue last weekend, that was Jennifer's decision. He cuts me off. You know how she gets about family events? She wanted it intimate. Intimate. 14 adults and 8 children. But somehow one 78-year-old man would have made it too crowded. I was thinking maybe we could have dinner this week. Just the 4 of us. I haven't seen Lily in almost 2 months. A pause. I can practically hear him calculating the cost of appeasing me versus the risk of losing his monthly income. This week's really busy, Harold. Lily has soccer practice and Jennifer's got her book club. Maybe next month? Next month. It's always next month with them. What about just coffee? I could drive out to Oak Park. Look, about that deposit. Can you transfer it today? We've got bills to pay. The line goes quiet, except for my own breathing. In the silence, I hear Evelyn's voice from a conversation we had 2 years before she died. We were in our bedroom and she was brushing her hair. Still beautiful at 68, still the woman I fell in love with in 1967. Harold, she'd said, watching me in the mirror. Do you ever feel like we're just a bank to them? I'd laughed it off then. They're grateful, Evie. They just don't know how to show it. But she'd turned around, her blue eyes serious. When's the last time Jennifer called just to talk? When's the last time they invited us somewhere that didn't involve us paying for something? I couldn't answer then. I can't answer now. Harold, you still there? Mark's voice brings me back to the present. I'm here. So, about that transfer. I look out my kitchen window at Mrs. Patterson's garden next door. She's 82, lives alone since her husband died. But her son visits every Sunday, brings his kids. They play in her yard, help her with groceries, sit on her porch and actually talk. I used to think they were the exception. Now I realize maybe I'm the one living abnormally. Harold, the money, I say slowly. It's not coming this month. What do you mean it's not coming? Is there a problem with your account? No problem with my account. There's a problem with my relationship with my daughter. Another pause. Longer this time. Look, I don't know what this is about, but Jennifer's going to be upset. You know how she gets when plans change. Yes, I know how Jennifer gets. I've spent her entire adult life walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting her, sending money when I couldn't afford it, agreeing to exclusions that broke my heart, accepting scraps of attention and being grateful for them. Maybe she should call me herself, I suggest. Maybe we should talk about more than just money. I'll have her call you, Mark says, but his tone suggests I shouldn't hold my breath. Can you at least send half? To tide us over? To tide them over. As if my retirement savings is their emergency fund. Goodbye, Mark. I hang up before he can respond. The house settles around me, creaking with the weight of memories. I walk to the living room, to the mantel where Evelyn's photos still sit. There's one from Jennifer's 16th birthday party, all of us laughing around the dining room table. Jennifer's blowing out candles on a cake I'd driven across the city to get from her favorite bakery. Evelyn's hand is on my shoulder, Lily's on my lap. Everyone's looking happy and together. When did that change? When did I stop being part of the circle and become just the wallet that funded it? I pick up another photo. Christmas morning 3 years ago. Lily's opening presents under a tree that cost me $2,000 to fill. Jennifer's smiling, but she's looking at the gifts, not at me. Mark's on his phone, probably checking his stock portfolio. Only Lily is looking at me, and even then, her attention is divided between my face and the expensive tablet in her hands. Was I used? The question hits me like a physical blow. I sink into my recliner, the one piece of furniture Evelyn and I bought for ourselves instead of giving the money to Jennifer, and let the weight of that possibility settle over me. 20 years of checks, 20 years of emergency bailouts, 20 years of "thanks, Dad, you're the best," followed by months of silence until the next crisis arose. When Mark lost his job, I was there within hours. When Lily needed surgery, I paid the medical bills without being asked. When their roof leaked, when their car broke down, when they wanted to renovate their kitchen, I was always there, checkbook ready, heart open. But when Evelyn was dying in the hospital, when I sat by her bedside for 6 days straight, holding her hand and watching her slip away, how many times did Jennifer visit? Twice. Mark came once, stayed 20 minutes, said he had to get back to work. When I called them after the funeral, broken and lost and desperately needing my family, Jennifer's first words weren't about my grief or my loneliness. They were about whether I was still planning to send the monthly payment, because Mom's death doesn't change our financial situation. My grief apparently didn't change their expectations either. I sit in the growing darkness of my living room, surrounded by photos of people who love what I can give them, but not who I am. The realization doesn't come as a shock. It settles over me like a fog, gradual and suffocating. I've been buying love for 20 years, and the price just went up to everything I had, including my dignity. Tomorrow, I'm going to do something I should have done years ago. I'm going to find out what happens when the bank is closed. When Dad becomes just Harold. When the money stops and the truth starts. For the first time in months, I sleep deeply, and I dream of Evelyn, shaking her head sadly, whispering the words I should have listened to 2 years ago. "Oh, Harold, you were always worth more than what you could give them." Jennifer finally calls on Thursday afternoon, 5 days after Mark's demand for money. 5 days of silence that told me exactly where I ranked in their priorities. "Dad?" Her voice is different, strained, like she's reading from a script she doesn't want to deliver. "Hello, sweetheart. Mark says you're having some kind of issue with the monthly payment?" Issue. As if my emotional breakdown was a technical glitch to be resolved. "I wanted to talk to you about that," I say, settling into my kitchen chair. Through the window, I watch Mr. Chen teaching his grandson to ride a bike. 3 generations learning together, laughing together. "Maybe we could meet for lunch?" It's been so long since... "Dad, I'm really swamped this week. Lily's got tournaments, and I'm organizing the charity gala for Mark's firm. Can't we just handle this over the phone? Handle this. Like I'm a vendor to be managed, not her father. Jennifer, when's the last time you and I had a real conversation? Not about money, not about bills. Just talked?" A pause. I can hear her shifting papers in the background, multitasking even during this call that took her 5 days to make. "We talk all the time, Dad." "When? When do we talk?" "Just last month when you called about..." She stops. We both remember that call. I'd been in the emergency room with chest pains. Turned out to be anxiety, but I was scared and alone and needed my daughter. She'd answered on the 4th ring, rushed and irritated, asked if it was serious because she was in the middle of something important. "That's what I mean," I say softly. "Even when I was in the hospital, you treated it like an inconvenience. Dad, you're being dramatic. It wasn't even a real heart attack. Dramatic." At 78, having chest pains that terrified me enough to call an ambulance, and I was being dramatic. "Do you remember your 40th birthday?" I ask, changing tactics. "What does that have to do with anything? Just, do you remember it?" A sigh. "Dad, I don't have time for..." "I spent 3 weeks planning that party. Rented the entire back room at Giuseppe's. Flew in your college roommate from Seattle. Had them make that chocolate cake from the recipe your mother used for your childhood birthdays. 60 people came. It was lovely. Thank you. 60 people came to celebrate you turning 40. How many people came to my 75th? Silence. Jennifer? Dad, that's different. You don't like big parties. You're right. I don't like big parties. I like family dinners. I like Sunday afternoons with my granddaughter. I like being included in the life I helped build. You are included. When? When am I included? When did Lily last sleep over here? When did you last bring her by just to visit? Not because you needed something? More silence. But this time I can hear something in the background that makes my chest tighten. Lily's voice, asking who Grandpa Harold is on the phone with. Is she there? I ask. Is Lily there with you? She's doing homework. Can I talk to her, please? It's been 2 months since I've heard her voice. Dad, she's really busy with school projects and… Jennifer. My voice breaks a little. Please, just for a minute. Hold on. I hear muffled conversation. Then Lily's sweet voice comes through the phone. Hi, Grandpa. Hi, sweetheart. How's school going? Good. Mom says you're sad about something. Out of the mouths of babes. I'm not sad, honey. I just miss you. I was thinking maybe you could come visit this weekend. We could go to Navy Pier, get some ice cream? I can't. I have soccer and Madison's birthday party, and Mom says I need to study for my math test. Every weekend, there's something. Every invitation, there's an excuse. What about next weekend? I don't know. Mom handles my schedule. Mom handles her schedule. When did I stop being part of that schedule? When did I become someone Lily had to be protected from rather than someone she wanted to spend time with? Lily, do you remember when we used to build those Lego castles together? And you'd tell me stories about the princesses who live there? Kind of. She's 12 now, and she only kind of remembers the grandfather who used to be her favorite person. Maybe we could do that again sometime? I don't really play with Legos anymore, Grandpa. I'm in middle school now. Of course you are. You're growing up so fast. Mom wants the phone back. And just like that, she's gone. Dad? Jennifer's voice returns, businesslike. Look, about the payment situation. She doesn't remember me, I say quietly. What? Lily. She doesn't remember the grandfather who taught her to fish, who read her bedtime stories, who helped her learn to ride a bike. She only kind of remembers our Lego castles. Dad, kids grow up. They change interests. Kids grow up. But grandparents don't disappear unless they're pushed away. Nobody pushed you away. Really? Then why haven't I been invited to a family dinner in 8 months? Why didn't I know about Lily's school play until after it happened? Why am I finding out about soccer tournaments through overheard conversations instead of proud invitations to watch my granddaughter play? You know you're always welcome. Am I? Because last time I suggested Sunday dinner, Mark said it would interfere with their family time. Last time I offered to pick up Lily from school, you said you didn't want to impose on my schedule. Last time I stop, because my voice is rising and I can hear how desperate I sound. Dad, we're all just busy. That's how life is when you have kids. I had kids too, Jennifer. You. And somehow I found time for my parents. Somehow Sunday dinners with Grandma and Grandpa were sacred, not impositions. That was different. How? How was it different? Because… She struggles for words. Because they didn't expect us to. They weren't always. They weren't always what? They didn't need us for everything, okay? They were independent. They had their own lives. And there it is. The truth she's been dancing around. I'm not independent because I've made myself indispensable through money. I've created a relationship where I'm needed for what I provide, not valued for who I am. So the money I send you, I say slowly, that makes me dependent? Needy? That's not what I meant. But it's what you said, and maybe it's what you think. Dad, please don't twist my words. You know we appreciate everything you do for us. Everything I do for them, not everything I am to them. Jennifer, I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you love me because I'm your father or because I pay your bills? Dad! How can you even ask that? Because I've been asking myself the same question for months, and I think I finally know the answer. This is ridiculous. Of course I love you. When? When do you show me that love? When do you express it in ways that don't cost me money? Silence. I send you $3,000 every month, I continue. I've given you nearly $300,000 over the years. I bought you your house, your cars, your daughter's education, and in return, I get phone calls when the money's late and excuses when I want to spend time with my granddaughter. Dad, you're being unfair. Am I? Let me ask you this. If I stopped sending money tomorrow, how long would it take before you stopped calling altogether? That's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible thing to wonder about your own daughter. But here we are. I can hear her crying now, soft sniffles that might be genuine emotion or might be manipulation. With Jennifer, it's become impossible to tell the difference. Dad, please, don't do this. We need you. You need my money. There's a difference. That's not true. Then prove it. Come have dinner with me this Sunday. Bring Lily. No agenda, no crisis, no bills to discuss. Just family time. Can you do that? A long pause. This Sunday's really hard. Mark's parents are visiting and… Next Sunday? Lily has a tournament. The Sunday after that? I'd have to check our calendar. I hang up. For the first time in my adult life, I hang up on my daughter. Not in anger, but in exhaustion. I'm tired of begging for scraps of attention from people who should be eager to give me their time. I'm tired of competing with soccer games and social events for a place in my granddaughter's life. I'm tired of being the old man who has to buy his way into family gatherings and then gets excluded anyway. The house settles into its familiar silence, but this time it doesn't feel oppressive. It feels like relief. I walk to my desk and pull out my checkbook. For 20 years, I've written the same check on the same date every month. $3,000 to Jennifer and Mark Hoffman for their mortgage, their lifestyle, their peace of mind. I tear up the blank check. Then I tear up another one. And another. By the time I'm finished, there's a small pile of confetti on my desk where my monthly obligation used to live. For the first time in decades, I'm free on the first of the month and terrified of what that freedom might cost me. The silence lasts exactly 18 hours. At 7:32 a.m. the next morning, my phone explodes with activity. 3 missed calls from Jennifer, 2 from Mark, and a text message that makes my stomach clench. Dad, we need to talk. Coming over at 10 a.m. Don't go anywhere. Jennifer, don't go anywhere. Like I'm a flight risk. Like I'm a child who needs supervision. I make my coffee slowly, deliberately, watching the clock tick toward their arrival. For the first time in months, I'm not rushing to accommodate someone else's schedule. If they want to ambush me in my own home, they can wait until I'm ready. At exactly 10 a.m., I hear the crunch of gravel in my driveway. Through the window, I watch Jennifer emerge from her BMW, the one I helped her buy 2 years ago when she decided her previous car wasn't professional enough for her real estate career. Mark follows, straightening his tie with the irritated precision of someone who's been pulled away from more important matters. The doorbell rings. I count to 10 before answering. Dad? Jennifer pushes past me into the living room, her heels clicking sharply against Evelyn's hardwood floors. She looks around with the critical eye of someone appraising property, taking in the dust on the mantel, the newspapers stacked on the coffee table, the general air of a man learning to live alone. You look tired, she says, but there's no warmth in the observation. It's the tone she uses with clients when she's trying to pressure them into a sale. Mark nods curtly and settles into my recliner without being invited. Harold, we need to clear up this misunderstanding. As if my emotional breakdown was a simple bookkeeping error. There's no misunderstanding, I say, remaining standing while they make themselves comfortable in my home. I've decided to stop sending you money. Jennifer's face goes white. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm very serious. But why? Her voice cracks slightly, and for a moment she sounds like the little girl who used to climb into my lap when thunderstorms scared her. What did we do wrong? What did they do wrong? Where do I even begin? When's my birthday, Jennifer? She blinks, caught off guard by the question. What does that have to do with… Just answer me. When is my birthday? It's… in September. September. She looks to Mark for help, but he's studying his phone with the intensity of someone pretending not to be part of this conversation. September 12th, I tell her. I turned 78 3 months ago. You sent a card, 2 days late, with a note that said, "Hope you had a nice day." Dad, I was busy with the Richardson closing. I spent 6 hours in the emergency room on my birthday. Chest pains. I called you from the hospital. Her mouth opens, then closes. I can see her trying to remember, trying to calculate whether acknowledging this makes things worse or better. You told me you'd try to stop by if you finished work early, I continue. You never came. I spent my 78th birthday alone in a hospital bed, wondering if I was having a heart attack, and my only child couldn't find 2 hours to sit with me. Dad, you said it wasn't serious. I didn't know that at the time. All I knew was that I was scared and alone and needed my daughter. But you had a closing that was more important than your father's health. Mark finally looks up from his phone. Harold, you're being dramatic. Jennifer's got responsibilities. She can't drop everything every time you have a medical scare. Every time. As if I'm some hypochondriac who cries wolf on a weekly basis. How many times have I called you from the hospital, Mark? That's not the point. How many times? He shifts uncomfortably. I don't know. A few. Once. In 78 years of life, I've called my family from a hospital exactly once. And it was too much to ask for a visit. Jennifer stands up abruptly, pacing to the window. This isn't about that. This is about you punishing us because you didn't get invited to one barbecue. One barbecue. I sit down heavily in Evelyn's old chair, the one she used to read in every evening. Jennifer, when's the last time you invited me anywhere? When's the last time you asked me to join you for dinner, for a movie, for anything that didn't involve my wallet? We invite you to things all the time. Name one. In the last year, name one social event you invited me to where you didn't also ask for money. She opens her mouth, then closes it, paces back to the fireplace, turns to Mark, who's suddenly very interested in his cuticles. That's not fair, she says finally. You know we appreciate you. How? How do you show me that appreciation? We call you. When you need money, when there's a crisis, when Mark loses a client and you're worried about making the mortgage payment. That's not true. I walk to my desk and pull out a small notebook, the one where I've been tracking our interactions since Evelyn died. Would you like me to read you the list? January 15th. Jennifer calls asking for an extra $1,000 for Lily's orthodontist. February 3rd. Mark calls about refinancing and needing cash for closing costs. March 22nd. Jennifer calls, stop. Her voice is sharp. Just stop. March 22nd was when you called crying because Lily needed emergency dental work after her accident. I drove to the bank that same day and transferred $5,000. Do you know what you said to me? She doesn't answer. You said, thanks, Dad. You're a lifesaver. We'll call you soon. That was 4 months ago. The next time I heard from either of you was when Mark called about this month's payment being late. The room falls silent except for the tick of the grandfather clock Evelyn and I bought for our 25th anniversary. It chimes the quarter hour, marking time that feels suspended between what was and what might be. Mark clears his throat. Look, Harold, we understand you're feeling neglected. Neglected. I turn to him. This man who married my daughter and somehow convinced her that her father was an obligation rather than a blessing. Is that what you call it when a 78-year-old man has to beg for phone calls from his own family? Nobody's begging. I called Jennifer 6 times last month. 6 times. She returned 2 of those calls, both times to ask for favors. Jennifer whirls around from the window. What favors? June 8th. Could I pick up your dry cleaning because you were running late for a showing? June 23rd. Could I let the repairman into your house because neither of you could take time off work? Those weren't favors. You were helping family. Family helps each other, Jennifer. What have you done to help me? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. I watch my daughter's face cycle through confusion, defensiveness, and something that might be the beginning of realization. She looks around my living room as if seeing it for the first time. I mean, you never asked for help. I called you when I had chest pains. That was different. How? Because that was an emergency. And my loneliness isn't? My depression since your mother died isn't? The fact that I go days without speaking to another human being isn't? Mark stands up abruptly. Harold, this guilt trip isn't going to work. We all have our own lives to manage. Guilt trip. The words hit me like a physical blow. Asking my daughter to treat me like family is a guilt trip? You're being manipulative. Mark continues, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Threatening to cut off financial support unless we dance to your tune. Dance to my tune? I can feel my voice rising. 20 years of suppressed frustration finally finding its voice. I asked for a dinner invitation. I asked to spend time with my granddaughter. I asked to be included in family gatherings. Is that dancing to my tune? Dad, please. Jennifer's voice wavers. Let's just calm down and figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. I'm done being your emergency fund. I'm done being the invisible grandfather who pays for everything and gets invited to nothing. You're not invisible, she protests, but her voice lacks conviction. When's the last time Lily drew me a picture? When's the last time she called just to tell me about her day? When's the last time you brought her here just because she wanted to see her grandfather? Jennifer's silence is answer enough. Do you know what I did for Father's Day? I ask quietly. They both shake their heads. I sat in this house from sunrise to sunset, waiting for a phone call that never came. I made myself a sandwich for dinner and watched game shows until I fell asleep in this chair. On Father's Day. Dad, we were at Mark's parents' house. His father was having his 80th birthday party. I know. I saw the pictures on Facebook. Lily looked beautiful in that blue dress, the one I bought her for Easter. The silence stretches between us, filled with all the words we're not saying. Finally, Mark stands up. This is ridiculous. You can't hold money hostage because you feel sorry for yourself. I'm not holding anything hostage. I'm making a choice. For the first time in 20 years, I'm choosing myself. And what about us? Jennifer's voice is small, scared. What about our mortgage? What about Lily's school? What about them? You're both successful adults. You make good salaries. Figure it out. But we budget around your contribution, then unbudget it. Mark's face flushes red. You can't just abandon your family because your feelings are hurt. Abandon my family? I stand up slowly, feeling every one of my 78 years in my aching joints. I haven't abandoned anyone. I've been abandoned by people who decided that loving me was conditional on what I could provide. That's not true, Jennifer whispers. Prove it, I say simply. Stay for lunch. No agenda, no crisis to solve, no money to discuss. Just spend time with your father because you want to. I watch them exchange glances, see the internal calculation happening. Mark checks his watch. Jennifer chews her lower lip. We can't, she says finally. We have the Petersons showing at 2 and… Then get out. The words surprise even me with their finality. Dad? Get out of my house. Come back when you want to see me more than you want my money. They stare at me for a long moment. These two people who have fed off my generosity for so long they've forgotten what it feels like to be truly hungry. Mark heads for the door first. You'll regret this, Harold. Family doesn't grow on trees. No, I say quietly. But apparently, neither does respect. After they leave, I sit in Evelyn's chair and listen to the silence. But this time, it doesn't feel empty. It feels like possibility. The morning after I threw them out, I wake up at 6:30 a.m. with no obligations. For the first time in 20 years, the first of the month means nothing to me. No check to write, no transfer to make, no $3,000 reminder that my value is measured in dollars rather than love. I make coffee slowly, savoring the ritual. Evelyn always said I rushed through my mornings, always thinking about what needed to be done next, instead of enjoying what was happening now. This morning, I grind the beans by hand, something I haven't done since she died. The smell fills the kitchen with warmth and possibility. Outside my window, Chicago is waking up. Mr. Chen is already in his garden, tending to the tomatoes he planted with his grandson. Mrs. Patterson is reading on her porch, her son's car already in her driveway for their weekly coffee date. Normal families doing normal things. Families where love isn't purchased in monthly installments. My phone has been silent for 12 hours. No desperate texts, no apologetic voicemails, no dramatic pleas for reconciliation. Their silence tells me everything I need to know about where I actually stood in their hierarchy of concerns. I walk to my desk and open my laptop. A simple machine Evelyn helped me pick out 3 years ago. I've never been comfortable with technology, but this morning I have all the time in the world to figure things out. I log into my online banking and stare at the numbers. For the first time since 2004, my checking account balance at the end of the month is the same as it was at the beginning. $3,000 that usually disappeared into Jennifer and Mark's mortgage is still sitting there, earning interest, belonging to me. The number on the screen feels revolutionary. I click through to my savings account and do something I haven't done in years. I calculate. If I stopped all the emergency transfers, the extra payments for Lily's activities, the holiday bonuses that somehow became expected rather than appreciated, How much money would I actually have? The math is staggering. In 5 years, assuming I live that long, I could have enough money to travel, to see Ireland, the place Evelyn always dreamed of visiting, to take that cruise through the Mediterranean that we planned but never took because Jennifer needed a new roof. I could have enough money to hire someone to help with the house maintenance that's been piling up since Evelyn died. I could replace the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom, repair the crack in the foundation, maybe even renovate the kitchen that still looks exactly the way it did in 1987. I could have enough money to feel secure in my old age, instead of constantly worrying about whether I'd have enough left for my own care if something happened to my health. The revelation hits me like a physical weight. I've been impoverishing my future to fund their present. I close the laptop and walk to the hall closet, where Evelyn's photo albums are stored in careful chronological order. She documented everything: birthdays, holidays, random Tuesday afternoons when Jennifer was young and the world felt full of possibility. I pull out the album from 1995 and sit on the living room floor like a child, letting the memories wash over me. Here's Jennifer at 17, graduation day, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. Her face is pure joy, pure gratitude. She looks at me like I hung the moon. When did that change? When did I stop being her hero and become her ATM? I flip through more pages. Jennifer's wedding day. She's crying as we dance to "The Way You Look Tonight," the same song Evelyn and I danced to at our wedding. "Thank you for everything, Daddy," she whispers in my ear. "I love you so much." The woman in these photos doesn't exist anymore. Or maybe she does, buried under 20 years of entitlement and financial dependency. I turn more pages and find photos from Lily's early years. Here she is at 2, covered in chocolate cake at her birthday party, reaching for me with sticky fingers. At 4, asleep in my lap during a Christmas movie. At 6, proudly showing off the bicycle I taught her to ride. In every photo, she's looking at me with pure adoration. When did I become someone she barely remembered? When did our Sunday afternoon adventures turn into scheduled obligations that always got canceled for more important things? The photo album trembles in my hands as the weight of what I've lost, what I've allowed to be taken from me, settles in my chest. At 2 p.m., I do something I haven't done since Evelyn died. I leave the house for no reason other than wanting to. No errands to run for Jennifer. No emergency bank trips to fund someone else's crisis. No predetermined destination where I'm expected to solve problems or provide services. I just drive. I end up at Lincoln Park Zoo, a place Evelyn and I used to take Jennifer when she was small. It's a Tuesday afternoon, so it's mostly empty except for a few mothers with toddlers and some teenagers skipping school. I buy a hot dog from a vendor, an indulgence I haven't allowed myself in months because every unnecessary expense felt like money stolen from Jennifer's needs. The hot dog tastes like freedom. I sit on a bench near the penguin exhibit and watch families move through the zoo. A grandfather pushes his grandson in a stroller, pointing out animals and making silly voices that send the little boy into fits of giggles. They stop at every exhibit, take photos together, share popcorn from an oversized bag. The grandfather looks tired, but happy, included, valued, like his presence is a gift rather than a burden. I pull out my phone and scroll through my contacts until I find a number I haven't called in 3 years. Robert Steinberg, my old accounting partner from Morrison & Associates. We retired the same year, but he moved to Florida with his wife while I stayed in Chicago to be close to Jennifer. The phone rings twice before his familiar voice answers. Harold? Harold Bennett? Well, I'll be damned. Hi, Bob. Jesus, it's been forever. How are you, buddy? How's Evelyn? The question hits like a punch to the gut. She passed away, Bob. 18 months ago. Oh, hell. Harold, I'm so sorry. She was a wonderful woman. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't I call him? Because I was so consumed with being available for Jennifer's needs that I forgot I had friends of my own. Because I'd let my world shrink to the size of my daughter's expectations. I should have, I admit. I've been lost, I guess. Of course you have. Jesus. 18 months? Harold, you should have come down here. Margaret and I have been talking about you just last week, wondering how you were doing. The idea that someone had been thinking about me, worrying about me, without wanting anything in return feels almost foreign. How's retirement treating you? I ask. Are you kidding? It's fantastic. We play golf 3 times a week. Margaret's got her garden club. We take dance lessons on Thursdays. Last month we went to Italy for 2 weeks, just because we could. Italy. Evelyn always wanted to see the Sistine Chapel. What about you? Bob continues. What are you doing with all that free time? The question exposes the emptiness of my life in ways I'm not ready to articulate. What am I doing with my time? Waiting for phone calls that never come, watching game shows, funding other people's dreams while abandoning my own. I'm figuring that out. I say finally. Well, figure it out down here. We've got a guest room and Margaret would love to see you. When's the last time you took a vacation? I try to remember. Really try. The last vacation I took that wasn't centered around visiting Jennifer or helping with some family crisis was never. Even our honeymoon was cut short because my father-in-law had a health scare that turned out to be indigestion. I can't remember, I admit. Then it's been too long. Come down for a week. Hell, come down for a month. You can afford it. And what's the point of having money if you never spend it on yourself? What's the point of having money if you never spend it on yourself? When did I forget that my money was supposed to be for my life, not just a resource for other people to access when they needed something? I might do that, I say. And for the first time in years, I mean it. We talk for another 20 minutes about mutual friends, about the old days at the firm, about Margaret's successful battle with breast cancer and their daughter's promotion to partner at her law firm in Miami. Normal life updates between old friends, no hidden agendas, no requests for financial assistance, just 2 men who used to work together, checking in on each other's lives. When I hang up, I feel lighter somehow, like I've remembered that I exist independently of my usefulness to Jennifer and Mark. I drive home through neighborhoods I haven't seen in years, taking the long way because I can, because there's no one waiting for me to rush back and solve their problems, because for the first time in decades, my time belongs to me. At home, I make myself a proper dinner. Not the microwave meals I've been surviving on, but actual cooking. Chicken breast with herbs from the garden Evelyn planted, rice pilaf, a side salad with vegetables that aren't about to expire. I set the table with the good china we saved for special occasions. I light a candle. I pour myself a glass of the wine that's been sitting in our cellar since our 40th anniversary, waiting for a celebration that never came. Tonight the celebration is simple. I'm celebrating myself. For the first time in 20 years, I'm having dinner without calculating whether the money I'm spending on groceries could be better used to fund someone else's life. After dinner, I call my financial advisor, something I probably should have done years ago instead of just writing checks whenever Jennifer asked. The conversation is enlightening in ways that both thrill and horrify me. Harold, Martin says after reviewing my accounts, you've been supporting your daughter to the tune of about $60,000 a year. Do you realize that? I didn't realize. I'd never added it all up. The monthly payments, the emergency transfers, the gifts that became expectations. If you stopped all of that tomorrow, Martin continues, you could live very comfortably for the rest of your life. You could travel, hire help when you need it, maybe even move to a nice retirement community if you wanted company. Company. The word resonates in ways I hadn't expected. I've been so focused on forcing my way into Jennifer's family that I'd forgotten there might be other ways to find community, other people who might value my company, for reasons that had nothing to do with my bank account. What if I wanted to buy a small condo somewhere warm? I ask. Somewhere I could spend winters? You could absolutely do that. You could buy a place outright and still have plenty left over for living expenses. A place in the sun. Somewhere Evelyn and I always talked about retiring to but never pursued because Jennifer always needed something. After I hang up with Martin, I sit in my living room and really look around for the first time in months. This house is too big for one person, too full of memories that make me sad rather than happy, too connected to a life that no longer exists. Maybe it's time to build a new life, one where I matter not because of what I can provide, but because of who I am. Outside my window, the sun is setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that Evelyn would have loved. For the first time since she died, I don't feel guilty for appreciating something beautiful without her. I feel ready to start living again, For myself this time. The attack comes on a Sunday morning, 3 weeks after I stopped the money. I'm reading the Tribune on my porch, enjoying my second cup of coffee and watching Mrs. Patterson tend to her roses, when 3 cars pull into my driveway like an invading army. Jennifer emerges from the first car, her face set in grim determination. Mark follows, carrying a manila folder thick with what I can only assume are financial documents meant to guilt me into submission. But it's the third car that surprises me. Lily steps out, looking confused and uncomfortable, followed by Mark's parents, Robert and Susan Hoffman. They've brought reinforcements. The entire family council, assembled to deal with the Herald problem. I set down my newspaper and wait. Let them come to me. Let them explain why my front yard now looks like a hostile takeover. Jennifer reaches the porch first, her heels clicking against the steps Evelyn and I painted together 5 summers ago. Dad, we need to have a family meeting. Do we? I remain seated, cradling my coffee cup like a shield. Because I wasn't aware we were still family. I thought I was just a funding source. Mark brushes past Jennifer, his lawyer instincts taking over. Harold, this has gone on long enough. You're hurting innocent people with this tantrum. 3 weeks of the most peace I've felt in years. And he calls it a tantrum. Hello, Lily, I say, ignoring Mark and focusing on my granddaughter. She's taller than I remembered. And there's something different about her expression. Less of the open affection I used to see. More of the guarded politeness that children learn when adults train them to be careful around certain relatives. Hi, Grandpa, she says quietly, not meeting my eyes. Susan Hoffman steps forward with the practiced authority of a woman who spent 60 years managing family crises. Harold, dear, we're all here because we care about you. Jennifer's told us how difficult things have been since Evelyn passed. Difficult. As if my grief was a behavioral problem rather than a natural response to losing the love of my life. Please, I gesture to the wicker chairs scattered around my porch. Make yourselves comfortable. Though I should warn you, I wasn't expecting a delegation. They arrange themselves in a semicircle around me like a tribunal. Jennifer pulls out her phone and opens what appears to be a prepared speech. Mark spreads his financial documents across the small table where Evelyn used to keep her gardening magazines. Robert Hoffman checks his expensive watch with the impatience of a man who has better places to be. Only Lily seems genuinely uncomfortable with the proceeding, fidgeting in her chair and glancing longingly at the street where normal Sunday mornings don't involve family interventions. Jennifer clears her throat. Dad, we've been thinking about your concerns, and we want you to know that we hear you. Do you? Yes. We realize we may have been taking you for granted. May have been. The careful language of someone who's never fully planning to admit fault. So, we've come up with a solution, Mark interjects, sliding a sheet of paper across the table. A formal agreement that outlines expectations on both sides. I look down at the document without picking it up. It's typed in legal font, with numbered clauses and official language that transforms family relationships into contractual obligations. A contract, I say flatly. An understanding, Jennifer corrects quickly. Something that makes sure everyone's needs are met. I scan the first few lines. Monthly family dinner to be scheduled no less than 2 weeks in advance. Phone calls to be returned within 48 hours unless emergency circumstances apply. Granddaughter visitation to occur minimum twice monthly for duration of no less than 3 hours. They've reduced my relationship with my family to a service agreement. You want to schedule love, I say, looking up at Jennifer. You want to contractually obligate yourself to spend time with your father. We want to make sure there are no more misunderstandings, Mark says smoothly. Clear expectations prevent future conflicts. And in return, I flip to the second page, though I already know what I'll find. Monthly financial contribution to resume at previous levels. Emergency fund access to be maintained for unforeseen circumstances. Educational expenses for minor child to be covered by paternal grandfather as per historical precedent. Historical precedent. They've turned 20 years of my generosity into legal obligation. Susan Hoffman leans forward with what she probably thinks is a warm smile. Harold, this ensures you get what you want. More time with the family, while protecting everyone's financial security. It's really quite reasonable. Reasonable. I set the contract down without signing it. Tell me, Susan, in your family, do you have contracts with your children? Well, no, but Do Robert's visits with his grandchildren require advanced scheduling and minimum time commitments? That's different. We see them regularly anyway. Exactly. I stand up slowly, my joints protesting but my resolve strengthening. You see them regularly because they want to see you, because you've built relationships based on love rather than financial dependency. Robert Hoffman finally speaks, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's used to being obeyed. Son, you're being unrealistic. These kids have busy lives. If you want guaranteed time with them, you need to make it worth their while. Make it worth their while. As if my company isn't valuable enough on its own. Lily, I say, turning to my granddaughter, can I ask you something? She nods reluctantly. Do you remember when we used to build pillow forts in my living room? Kind of, she says, but there's a spark of memory in her eyes. And we'd tell stories about brave knights and clever princesses? Yeah, I remember that. Would you like to do that again sometime? Just because it's fun? She starts to nod, but catches herself, glancing at her parents. I guess. If Mom says it's okay. If Mom says it's okay. When did I need permission to spend time with my own granddaughter? What if I didn't have any money, Lily? What if Grandpa was just a regular old man who couldn't buy you things or help your parents with bills? Would you still want to visit me? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Lily looks genuinely confused, as if the concept of visiting relatives for non-financial reasons is foreign to her. I don't know, she says honestly. And there it is. The truth that everyone's been dancing around. My granddaughter doesn't know whether she'd want to see me if I couldn't provide financial benefits to her family. Jennifer stands up abruptly. Dad, that's not fair. You're confusing her. I'm clarifying things, for all of us. I walk to the porch railing and look out at my neighborhood, where normal families are having normal Sunday mornings. 20 years ago, when you got married, you promised to love and cherish each other for richer or poorer. Do you remember that, Jennifer? What does that have to do with anything? I'm wondering if you think family love should be conditional on wealth, if my value as your father is directly tied to my ability to pay your bills. Dad, you're twisting everything. Am I? I turn back to face them all. Let me ask you this. If I lost all my money tomorrow, if I needed care in my old age, if I became a burden instead of a benefit, would you still want me in your lives? The silence stretches so long that Mrs. Patterson's lawnmower next door sounds like thunder. Mark finally breaks it. Harold, that's a hypothetical situation. Is it? Because I'm 78 years old. My health isn't going to improve. Someday, probably sooner than any of us want to think about, I'm going to need more than I can give. What happens then? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Jennifer says, but her voice lacks conviction. No, I shake my head. We'll cross it now. Because I'm not signing a contract that guarantees you money in exchange for scheduled affection. I'm not paying for the privilege of being your father. I walk back to my chair and pick up the contract. For a moment, I just hold it, feeling the weight of what it represents. The final acknowledgement that they see me as a resource rather than a relative. Then I tear it in half. Jennifer gasps. Mark's face flushes red. Susan Hoffman actually reaches for the pieces as if she can somehow reassemble the deal that was going to solve everything. Dad, what are you doing? I'm choosing dignity over dependence. I'm choosing self-respect over purchased love. You're choosing to abandon your family, Mark snaps, his professional composure finally cracking. No, I'm refusing to buy my way into a family that should want me for free. I look at each of them in turn. These people who've fed off my generosity for so long, they've forgotten what it feels like to be truly hungry for connection rather than cash. Here's my counteroffer, I say calmly. You can have a relationship with me based on love, respect, and genuine affection. Or you can have no relationship at all. But you cannot have my money without my dignity. Dad, please. Jennifer's voice breaks slightly. Don't do this. We need you. You need my bank account. There's a difference. That's not true. Prove it. Come to dinner next Sunday. No agenda, no crisis, no bills to discuss. Just spend time with your father because you love him. And if we do that, you'll resume the payments. The question reveals everything. Even now, even after everything we've discussed, she's still trying to negotiate a transaction. No, Jennifer. If you do that, You'll discover whether you're capable of loving your father without compensation. Robert Hoffman stands up with obvious disgust. This is ridiculous. Susan, we're leaving. Let them sort out their own mess. As Mark's parents head for their car, I feel something shift inside me. These people who'd driven over to pressure me into compliance are giving up the moment they realize I can't be bullied back into submission. Lily, I call as she starts to follow her grandparents. Remember what I said about pillow forts. The invitation stands. Always. She looks back at me with something that might be longing, but Jennifer takes her hand and guides her toward the car. Don't blame us when you're sitting alone at Christmas, Mark says as his parting shot. I won't blame you, I reply, but I won't pay you either. They drive away in the same formation they arrived in, leaving me alone on my porch with the torn pieces of their contract scattered at my feet. For the first time in 3 weeks, I feel completely free and completely terrified of what that freedom might cost me. But as I watch their cars disappear down my street, past the normal families having normal Sunday mornings, I realize something profound. I'd rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by people who only value what I can provide. I'm 78 years old, and I'm finally learning to love myself enough to demand that others do the same, even if that means loving myself alone. 6 weeks after I tore up their contract, I'm standing in the departure lounge at O'Hare Airport, holding a one-way ticket to Fort Lauderdale. The suitcase at my feet contains everything I need for the next chapter of my life, which, it turns out, isn't very much when you stop carrying other people's burdens. Bob Steinberg is waiting for me at the other end, along with his wife Margaret and a guest room they've prepared for someone who's finally ready to remember what it feels like to be wanted rather than needed. The decision came to me 3 weeks ago while I was eating breakfast alone, reading about a 92-year-old woman who'd just learned to paint watercolors. If she could start something new at 92, what was my excuse at 78? I'd called Bob that same morning. That invitation to visit, I'd said. Does it still stand? Hell yes. How soon can you get here? How about permanently? The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Then Bob's laughter boomed through the phone like thunder. Harold Bennett, you magnificent bastard. It's about time. The house sold in 2 weeks. Slightly below market value to a young couple with twin toddlers who fell in love with Evelyn's garden and the afternoon light that streams through the kitchen windows. I could have held out for full price, but there was something beautiful about watching them walk through the rooms, already planning where their children would play, where they'd hang family photos, where they'd build the kind of memories I once thought I had. I kept 3 things from 48 years in that house: Evelyn's wedding ring, which I wear on a chain around my neck, the photo album from our honeymoon in Niagara Falls, and the rocking chair where she used to read every evening, which is being shipped separately to Florida where it will sit on a screened porch, overlooking a lake I've never seen but already love. Everything else, the furniture Jennifer didn't want to steal, the dishes we saved for special occasions that never came often enough, the accumulation of a lifetime spent in one place, went to charity. The Salvation Army sent 3 trucks. The volunteers were amazed by the quality of items I was donating. Are you sure you want to give away this dining room set? One young man asked. This is solid mahogany, worth thousands. I'm sure, I told him. Someone should get use out of it. Someone who has family dinners. The hardest part wasn't letting go of the possessions. It was walking through empty rooms that still echoed with Evelyn's laughter, with Jennifer's childhood footsteps, with the ghost of a life that had felt real and permanent and meaningful until it revealed itself to be built on foundations of transaction rather than love. But even that sadness felt clean somehow, pure, like grief that serves a purpose instead of resentment that just festers. I haven't heard from Jennifer or Mark since the contract confrontation. My phone number hasn't changed. My email address remains the same, but the silence from their end has been absolute, telling me everything I needed to know about their priorities. The only surprise came 2 weeks ago when I found a manila envelope slipped under my front door. No return address. No postmark. Inside, a hand-drawn picture of a pillow fort with 2 stick figures inside. One tall, one small. At the bottom, in careful 12-year-old handwriting, I remember, Grandpa. Love, Lily. I kept that drawing. It's in my carry-on bag now. A reminder that love sometimes finds a way to survive even when it's been suffocated by adult complications and financial manipulations. I may have lost my daughter, but I haven't lost all hope for my granddaughter. Someday, when she's old enough to make her own choices about who she wants in her life, maybe she'll remember the grandfather who loved her for free. The boarding announcement crackles over the intercom. Now boarding all passengers for Flight 447 to Fort Lauderdale. I stand up slowly, my joints protesting but my spirit soaring. The woman next to me, probably in her 60s, glances at my ticket. Florida? She asks with a smile. Business or pleasure? New beginning, I say, and the words taste like possibility. The flight is smooth, peaceful. I have a window seat, and as Chicago shrinks below me, I don't feel the tug of homesickness I expected. Instead, I feel something I haven't experienced in decades. Anticipation, excitement about what comes next, instead of dread about what bill needs paying or what crisis needs solving. The man across the aisle is reading a book about Italian cooking. The woman behind me is showing her companion photos of grandchildren who obviously adore her. A teenager in the row ahead is video chatting with friends, making plans for spring break. Normal people living normal lives, connected to other people who value their presence rather than their presence. Bob and Margaret are waiting at the gate when I emerge, both of them tanned and healthy-looking in a way that suggests retirement is agreeing with them. Margaret hugs me with the fierce affection of someone who knew Evelyn well and understands what her loss meant. Harold Bennett, she says, stepping back to look at me. You look different, lighter somehow. I feel it. Bob claps me on the shoulder. Wait until you see the community we've found. Active seniors who actually act like they're alive instead of just waiting to die. The drive to their house takes us through neighborhoods I never imagined existed. Palm trees and golf courses, and people my age riding bicycles and walking dogs and sitting on porches that face the water instead of empty streets. There's a condo for sale 2 buildings down from us, Margaret mentions casually. Waterfront, 2 bedrooms, move-in ready. The owner's asking way too much, but with your accounting background, I bet you could negotiate something reasonable. A home of my own, 5 minutes from friends who invited me because they wanted my company. The concept feels revolutionary. Their guest room is exactly what I need. Simple, clean, comfortable. A place to rest and plan and remember what it feels like to be welcomed rather than tolerated. That first evening, we sit on their screened porch watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of orange and pink that would have made Evelyn weep with joy. Margaret brings out a bottle of wine that costs more than I used to spend on groceries in a week, back when I was calculating every expense against Jennifer's needs. To new adventures, Bob toasts, raising his glass. To choosing ourselves, I counter. And we drink to the revolutionary idea that people over 75 have the right to prioritize their own happiness. Over dinner, they tell me about their life here. The book club that actually discusses books instead of just gossiping. The photography group that takes day trips to capture the strange beauty of Florida wildlife. The volunteer work at the animal shelter where Margaret has found purpose in caring for creatures who love without conditions or expectations. What about you? Margaret asks. What do you want to do with this new freedom? The question catches me off guard. For so long, my wants and needs have been irrelevant compared to other people's demands. But sitting here, surrounded by the warmth of genuine friendship, I realize I do have desires that don't involve funding other people's dreams. I want to learn Spanish, I say, surprising myself. Evelyn always wanted us to travel to South America, but we never made it happen. Maybe I still can. There's a Spanish conversation group that meets at the community center, Bob says immediately. Bunch of retirees planning trips to Costa Rica and Mexico. Perfect for beginners. I want to try painting again, I continue. The words coming easier now. I used to paint landscapes when Jennifer was little, but I stopped when she got busy with school and sports, and I became her transportation service. The art studio downtown offers classes specifically for seniors, Margaret adds. No pressure, no competition, just the joy of creating something beautiful. And I want to cook, really cook. Not just heat up frozen dinners or grab whatever's quick between errands for other people. I want to take my time and enjoy the process. They exchange a look that I recognize, the satisfied expression of people who've successfully rescued someone from drowning. Harold, Margaret says gently, do you realize you just talked for 5 minutes straight about things you want to do for yourself? When's the last time you did that? I try to remember. Really try. The last time I expressed personal desires that didn't revolve around making other people happy or solving other people's problems. I honestly can't remember, I admit. Then we've got some catching up to do. Bob grins. Starting tomorrow. Tomorrow? The word used to fill me with anxiety. What crisis would arise? What emergency would drain my savings? What impossible demand would require me to choose between my own needs and my family's expectations? Now it sounds like promise. That night, I sleep better than I have since Evelyn died. The bed is comfortable, but more than that, my mind is quiet. No phone calls to expect, no bills to pay for other people, no guilt about choosing myself for once in my adult life. I dream of Evelyn, but not the sad dreams that have haunted me for 18 months. In this dream, she's young again, wearing the yellow dress she had on when we first met at that church social in 1965. She's smiling, proud, radiant. I was wondering when you'd remember, she says. Remember that you matter too. I'm sorry it took so long. Don't be sorry. Be free. Be happy. Be the man I fell in love with, the one who knew his own worth. I wake up with tears on my cheeks. But for the first time since she died, they're tears of gratitude rather than grief. Outside my window, the Florida sun is rising over a lake where people my age are already out walking, jogging, living their lives with the energy of people who've remembered that retirement is supposed to be a reward, not a punishment. I'm 78 years old, and I'm finally ready to live like I deserve to be here, like I'm worth loving just because I'm me. 8 months later, I'm standing in my own kitchen, not the one I shared with ghosts for 48 years, but a bright, airy space that faces east toward the lake where I watch the sunrise every morning with my coffee and my Spanish vocabulary cards. The waterfront condo Bob and Margaret found for me became mine in October, and I've spent these months slowly making it home. Not the kind of home built for other people's comfort, but a space designed around my own needs and pleasures. The living room has large windows because I love natural light. The spare bedroom is an art studio because I've rediscovered the joy of painting landscapes. The kitchen is equipped for someone who's learning to cook for the pleasure of creation rather than the necessity of survival. On my easel right now sits a half-finished painting of the sunset I watched last night from my screened porch. Orange and pink and gold reflected in water that changes color with the light. Evelyn would have loved this view. She would have loved watching me paint it. I'm better at Spanish than I expected, and worse at golf than I hoped, but both have given me something I'd forgotten existed. The satisfaction of learning for its own sake rather than to solve someone else's problems. In my Tuesday conversation group, I talk with Maria from Guatemala and Carlos from Mexico and Janet from Ohio, who fell in love with a Costa Rican tour guide and married him at 73. Their stories remind me that life doesn't end at retirement. It just begins a new chapter where you finally get to choose the plot. My phone rings while I'm cleaning my paintbrushes, and I see a number I don't recognize with a Chicago area code. For just a moment, my heart jumps with the old hope. Maybe Jennifer, maybe ready to apologize, to try again, to build something real. Hello? Mr. Bennett? This is Sarah Chen. I work at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. My stomach drops. Has something happened to Jennifer? To Lily? Despite everything, I don't want them hurt. Yes? I'm calling because you're listed as the emergency contact for Lily Hoffman. She's been in an accident. Emergency contact. After 8 months of silence, after contracts and ultimatums and complete abandonment, they still have me listed as the person to call when crisis strikes. Is she all right? She's stable. A bicycle accident. She hit a pothole and went over the handlebars. Concussion, broken wrist, some scrapes and bruises. Nothing life-threatening, but she's asking for you. She's asking for me. Her parents? Mr. Hoffman is in court and can't get away immediately. Mrs. Hoffman is with a client and, well, honestly, Lily specifically requested that we call her Grandpa Harold. She was quite insistent. My hands shake as I write down the room number. I'll be there as soon as I can. Mr. Bennett? I should mention, Lily has your phone number memorized. That's how we found you. She made us promise to call you first. I hang up and stare at my phone. mind racing. The logical part of me knows this could be a trap, another manipulation designed to pull me back into their financial web. But the grandfather part of me, the part that taught her to ride bikes and build pillow forts and believe in brave knights and clever princesses, knows she needs me, not my money, me. Bob drives me to the airport without question, understanding that some emergencies transcend family politics. Margaret packs me a bag while I book the next flight to Chicago, both of them moving with the efficient care of friends who know that love sometimes requires dropping everything and flying toward uncertainty. "Call us when you know more," Bob says as he drops me at the curb. "And Harold? Remember who you are now. Don't let them make you forget." The flight back to Chicago feels like traveling through time. 3 hours ago, I was a man who'd built a new life around his own worth and happiness. Now I'm flying toward people who've trained me to believe my value lies in my utility to them. But something's different this time. I'm not rushing to solve their crisis or fund their emergency. I'm going to see my granddaughter because she asked for me specifically, and that distinction matters more than I expected. The hospital smells exactly like it did when I spent those terrifying hours thinking I was having a heart attack. Antiseptic and fear and the strange, sterile hope that medical institutions try to manufacture. But I'm not the same man who sat alone in that emergency room 8 months ago, waiting for a daughter who never came. Lily is in room 314, propped up in bed with her left arm in a bright blue cast. Her face lights up when she sees me in the doorway, and for a moment she looks exactly like the little girl who used to run to me at family gatherings before those gatherings stopped, including me. "Grandpa," she says, and the joy in her voice is so pure it nearly knocks me over. "Hello, sweetheart." I sit in the chair beside her bed, resisting the urge to smooth her hair or check her bandages. "How are you feeling?" "Better now that you're here. I knew you'd come." "Of course I came." "You called for me." She nods solemnly. "Mom and Dad said you moved to Florida, that you didn't want to be part of our family anymore." The casual cruelty of that lie hits me like a physical blow. They've spent 8 months painting me as the villain in their story, the selfish grandfather who abandoned his family over money. "Lily, that's not what happened." "I know." Her voice is quiet but certain. "I figured it out. They only talk about you when they're worried about money. And they always seem mad when they mention your name, like you did something wrong. But I remember when you used to visit all the time, and you were never mean or angry. You just loved us." Out of the mouths of babes. At 12 years old, she's figured out what her parents have spent decades avoiding, the difference between conditional and unconditional love. "I did love you. I do love you. That's why I'm here. Even though they were mean to you." I consider lying, protecting her from the adult complications that destroyed our family. But she deserves honesty. She deserves to understand that love doesn't require financial compensation. Yes, even though they were mean to me, because love isn't something you stop doing when people hurt you. It's something you keep doing because of who you are, not because of what they deserve. She thinks about this for a long moment, picking at the edge of her cast with her good hand. "Grandpa, are you happy in Florida?" The question surprises me with its directness. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm very happy. Do you have friends?" "I do. Good friends who like spending time with me." "What do you do there?" I tell her about my Spanish lessons, about learning to paint watercolors, about the morning walks by the lake and the evening dinners with Bob and Margaret. I tell her about the simple pleasure of choosing how to spend my time based on what makes me happy, rather than what other people need from me. "That sounds nice," she says wistfully. "Different from here." "How so?" "Everyone here is always stressed about money. Mom and Dad fight about bills all the time now. They had to sell Dad's car and get something cheaper. Mom says they might have to take me out of private school. So that's what happened after the money stopped. Reality crashed into their artificially inflated lifestyle, and instead of adjusting their expectations, they chose to resent the man who'd been subsidizing their comfort." "Are you sorry?" she asks suddenly. "About stopping the money?" "No," I say without hesitation. "I'm not sorry for choosing to value myself." "Good." Her voice is fierce, surprising me. "They were using you. I knew it even when I was little. Every time we visited, they always asked for stuff. And you always said yes, even when you looked sad about it." "Even when I looked sad about it." How long has she been watching this dynamic, understanding more than any child should have to understand about family dysfunction. Lily, I want you to know something important. What happened between me and your parents? That's not your fault. And it doesn't change how I feel about you. I know. That's why I made them call you. I wanted to see if you still loved me even though my parents were mean to you. And what do you think now? She smiles. The first completely unguarded expression I've seen from her in years. I think you came to Chicago because I asked you to. Even though it probably made you sad to come back here. That's the kind of thing people do when they love someone for real. For real. Yes, that's exactly right. The door opens and Jennifer rushes in, her face pale with worry and something that might be guilt. She stops short when she sees me, her expression cycling through surprise, relief, and resignation. Dad, you came. She asked for me. I know. The nurse said. She trails off, looking between Lily and me, probably calculating whether my presence helps or hurts her current situation. Thank you, she says finally, and for a moment she sounds like the daughter I raised rather than the stranger who tried to buy my affection with a contract. For coming, for being here when I couldn't. It's not an apology, but it's acknowledgement. A recognition that maybe, just maybe, some things matter more than money. How is she really? I ask. She'll be fine. The doctor says the concussion is mild, and the wrist will heal completely. She can go home tomorrow. Home. I wonder if Lily thinks of that house as home, or if she feels as displaced there as I did in my final months in Chicago. Mark arrives an hour later, still in his court suit, looking harried and older than I remember. He nods to me with careful politeness. Not warmth, but not hostility either. Perhaps crisis has a way of putting things in perspective. Harold, thank you for coming. She's my granddaughter. I know that now. It's the closest thing to an admission of wrongdoing I'm likely to get from him. They don't ask about money. They don't hint about financial difficulties or suggest that this medical emergency requires my intervention. Either they've learned to solve their own problems, or they've found other sources of funding, or they simply understand that this moment is about love rather than transaction. I stay until visiting hours end, holding Lily's good hand while she dozes, telling her stories about the pelicans that nest near my condo and the art class where I'm learning to paint birds in flight. She listens with the same rapt attention she used to give to my pillow fort fairy tales, and I remember why being a grandfather felt like such a gift before it became such a burden. When I kiss her forehead goodbye, she whispers, "Will you visit me in Florida sometime? When I'm older and can choose? Anytime you want, sweetheart. I'll always have room for you. Promise?" Promise. The flight back to Fort Lauderdale gives me time to process what just happened. Jennifer and Mark treated me with respect rather than expectation. They thanked me for coming rather than demanding I solve their problems. And Lily reminded me why love is worth maintaining even when it's complicated by adult failures and financial manipulations. I'm not going back to Chicago permanently. I'm not resuming monthly payments or emergency funding. But I'm also not writing off the possibility that people can change, that relationships can heal, that love can survive even after trust has been broken. When Bob picks me up at the airport, I feel lighter than I did when I left. Not because the situation is resolved. Family dysfunction doesn't disappear overnight, but because I maintained my boundaries while honoring my love. How did it go? Bob asks as we drive through the familiar Florida landscape toward home. It went exactly as it should have. I was there for someone who needed me, without sacrificing who I've become. That night, I sit on my screened porch watching the sunset paint the lake in colors I'm learning to capture with watercolors. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for coming, Grandpa. I love you. Lily." She figured out how to text me without her parents' involvement. Smart girl. Just like her great-grandmother Evelyn would have been in the same situation. I text back, "I love you too, brave princess. Sweet dreams." Then I turn off my phone and watch the stars emerge over water that reflects my new life back to me. I'm 78 years old, and I finally understand the difference between being needed and being valued, between buying love and earning it, between sacrificing everything for family and maintaining enough of yourself to be worth loving. Have you ever felt used by people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Have you ever had to choose between your financial security and your family's approval? Leave a comment below and tell me about it. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel, because stories like Harold's need to be heard by people who are wondering if they still matter after 60, if their worth extends beyond what they can provide, if it's ever too late to choose themselves. You matter. Your happiness matters. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is showing them what self-respect looks like.